Holy Gospel according to St. John, the 6th chapter. Glory to you, O Lord. Jesus went to the other side of the Sea of Galilee, also called the Sea of Tiberias. A large crowd kept following him because they saw the signs that he was doing for the sick. Jesus went up the mountain and sat down there with his disciples. Now the Passover, the festival of the Jews, was near. When he looked up and he saw a large crowd coming toward him, Jesus said to Philip, "Where are we to buy bread for these people to eat?" He said this to test him, for he himself knew what he was going to do. Philip answered him, 6 months' wages would not buy enough bread for each of them to get a little. One of his disciples, Andrew, Simon Peter's brother, said to him, "There is a boy here who has 5 barley loaves and 2 fish. But what are they among so many people?" Jesus said, "Make the people sit down." Now there was a great deal of grass in that place, so they sat down, about 5,000 in all. Then Jesus took the loaves, and when he had given thanks, he distributed them to those who were seated. So also the fish, as much as they wanted. When they were satisfied, he told his disciples, "Gather up the fragments left over, so nothing may be lost." So they gathered them up, and from the fragments of the 5 barley loaves left by those who had eaten, they filled 12 baskets. When the people saw the sign that he had done, they began to say, "This is indeed the prophet who has come into the world." When Jesus realized they were about to come and take him by force to make him king, he withdrew again to the mountain by himself. When evening came, his disciples went down to the sea, got into a boat, and started across the sea to Capernaum. It was now dark, and Jesus had not yet come to them. The sea became rough because of strong winds blowing. When they had rowed about 3 or 4 miles, they saw Jesus walking on the sea and coming near the boat, and they were terrified. But he said to them, "It is I. Do not be afraid." Then they wanted to take him into the boat, and immediately the boat reached the land toward which they were going. This is the gospel of the Lord. Praise to you, O Christ. Please be seated. So a couple of words before I invite, it'll be Peter, and then Jane, and then Emmy. And then I'll also read a thank you note from Ruby, who is also there. But just a couple of words about the gospel lesson, tying it in to the youth gathering and stories we're going to hear. I love the fact, like I mentioned in the children's sermon, I love the fact that here are these 5,000 people. They show up. Here's a little boy that brought food for a picnic, brought what he had. And in that, they were fed. Jesus took what the boy brought and fed the multitudes. I love that because at the National Youth Gathering, when we went there, we went as ourselves. Peter went, Emmy went, Jane went, Ruby went, I went, Pastor John went, and some other Prince of Life folks with another about 31,000 kids and adults. We all went with what we brought, which was ourselves, and God worked miracles. God was present there and used who we were for the bettering of Houston and the bettering of the world. That when we gathered there, the ripple effect was much more than the youth group from Zion Lutheran, and the youth group from Prince of Life, and the youth group from Oregon, and from across the states. That ripple effect was like the feeding of the 5,000. God taking what we brought, and through blessing that, the bettering of the world. That was a miracle. That is the kind of miracles that change So I'm going to read Ruby's thank you note, and then I'll invite Peter up. I told you three to speak from there, but I'm going to actually have you speak from here because I have a camera on you, because I've had a couple of people say, are you going to video it? It's like, yes, I will. And I'm glad they did, so I would actually remember to do that. So Ruby writes to the congregation, thank you guys so much for helping us all go on this trip. Thank you for donating money, and thank you for helping us prepare. I had so much fun on the trip, and I am sure that everyone else did too. It was really fun meeting other kids my age from all around the country. You guys all gave us a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Signed, Ruby. So, since Ruby isn't here, I'm going to tell a story about Ruby, which I think it was pretty darn cool. We are in the gathering area of the hotel where we were staying, the Hilton Doubletree downtown. We're there. We are gathering. Now, people from Oregon Synod were all in that hotel with a neighboring hotel. But so it's a little less likely that this would happen, or a little more likely that this would happen, but 31,000 kids all around. But in this hotel, we're sitting there, and Ruby stops, and she turns around, and she sees another youth group on the other side of the foyer, the gathering area. She says, I know that kid. He goes to my high school. Which they had no clue up until that point, that they were in this journey together in this broad umbrella of the ELCA Lutheran Church, in a smaller umbrella of Oregon City, in Oregon State, in a smaller umbrella of Portland, Oregon City area. A big world becoming much smaller as God makes these strange connections. I thought it was pretty cool. All right, I'm going to invite Peter up to share, and after that it will be Jane, and then Emmy.
So, a bit of a familiar story, similar to Ruby's. So the past few years, and my dad went there too, and he worked there. We go to a camp called Luther Heights Bible Camp, and it's up in Idaho Falls, Ketchum. It's near the Sawtooth Mountains. For me at least, farthest Lutheran group I've been from Oregon. That's before anything had to do with the youth gathering. Now I want to say thank you very much. First of all, you guys all made an amazing effort, and you guys made us expand our borders. You showed us what it's like to meet Lutherans outside of Oregon. And it was a wonderful trip because so many people like us are out there, and we just never got to see that until now. But what I'd like to talk about is our first NRG. This is the huge stadium where 30,000 other Lutheran children met up together. And we got to celebrate and experience God in a way that we've never done before. Now, we're going through this escalator, and it's very jam-packed. We have 30,000 other kids trying to enter this huge stadium, and we're just standing there. We don't really get to move for another few minutes, and I'm kind of looking around me, seeing who's all there, and I look over, and there's this person I recognize, and I realize, last year, I went to Luther Heights Bible School with them, or Bible camp with them, and this is just out of the blue. Her name was Claire, and I worked with you for a week. It was crazy because in the small world of Lutheran children, we were able to meet each other in these small world moments. And I love that so much. A different story is I found out my dad's famous. Apparently, we didn't know this. We land in the airport, at the Fort Worth Airport lobby, and we're kind of waiting. There's a little bit of a problem. It turns out Jane's bag was lost. They had lost her bag, So we wait there a few hours and all these groups around us get to go before us. But it turns out it was the perfect time for another pastor to come up. Are you John Stevens? From the children's sermon. Well, it turns out my dad for the past 4 years or so has been doing this online children's sermon. You know, he does the dollar store children's sermons. Well, apparently within the small group of about 1,000 Lutheran pastors, he is fairly well known. We get to our Oregon Double Hill Hilton Tree Hotel, and another person notices him. And it's because of these small world moments, we get to see these random pastors walk up to him the most random occasion. We'll get off the Max or we'll get off the light rail and, are you John Stevens? I love your work. And it's these wonderful moments that we get to have these small world occasions. And I love the experience so much. And I'm so happy you guys let us do this amazing, amazing thing. Thank you all so much.
Just want to say, like everybody else, thank you so much for helping send us to Houston. It was truly life-changing. I wanted to talk about how I felt it impacted me personally going to Houston and worshiping with so many other people. In Oregon City, in Oregon in general, there are not a lot of Lutherans, not a lot of Lutheran kids. And so it can feel kind of lonely not having that many teenagers who believe the same things as you. And coming to Houston, at first, it was awkward in the airport. We would see other groups like all wearing the same color t-shirts, so you know who they belong with, and we just stuck to each other, and we're just like, oh my gosh. But then, throughout the week, people started getting friendlier with each other, and we would say like, hey, what state are you from? We're from Oregon. They'd be like, where's Oregon? They don't know where Oregon is. But it put a lot of things in perspective for me, that Oregon is not the center of the world, but also that there are so many other Lutheran teenagers across the country and across the world. And it was really cool seeing, by the end of the week, how united we all were and how friendly we were. Like, going back to the airport to leave, everybody was talking, and it wasn't that awkward thing that it was at the beginning. And coming back to church the first time, which was I think like 2 weeks ago after going to the gathering, it was really cool for me because our church seems so small compared to 30,000 people, but I still feel like motivated to worship the same way I did there. Even though it's a smaller group of people, it's still just as special to me, if not more special. And it's because of you guys that I got to feel that way. And I just really want to say thank you so much.
Okay, like everyone else, I want to say thank you. It was super awesome and life-changing and something I won't ever forget. I wanted to tell you guys more about how the events were every single night at the NRG Stadium. So I can't really even begin to describe the feeling of those nights. There was all these flashing lights and super loud music where everything was shaking and your heart was thumping, and all the speakers sharing their heart-wrenching stories. And the whole week there was a theme where this changes everything, and each day had a specific theme where God's call changes everything, God's hope changes everything, God's love changes everything, God's grace changes everything, and each speaker shared how that changed everything for them. And it was super cool to hear all of that. It was a huge eye-opener for sure. And because of that week, I feel definitely closer to God, and it was something that I'll never forget. And one thing I wanted to share was somehow, I don't know how this happened, but one group started it or something, and it was a dance, and it was just like this, right? It was super simple, and somehow all 30,000 people ended up doing it to every single song, and even the people on stage, and so everyone was just the whole time, and no one really knew, and some people were going the wrong way, and the claps were off, but it was fun because we were all united as one, doing the same little dance that who knows how it got started. And then one other thing was there's these paper clips or clothespins that people would write their names on or their church names on, and you would go around and stick it on random people. And it was like a thing to like collect all of these clothespins with all these different churches on it. And you get back to your hotel and you have 5 new on your backpack and you'd be so excited because you got all these clothespins. So I just want to say thank you again. It was a super awesome, life-changing experience that I will absolutely never forget.
It was pretty darn awesome. So we also had the opportunity when we were there to experience Houston in many other ways. We got to go to the aquarium, we got to go to the Fine Arts Museum. They had the City Pass where we were able to do like 4 or 5 different things. So we packed our time in. One of the things that we did the second day is we went to NASA. We went to the Houston Space Center. We got to experience that. We got to sit in the same room where many of you heard Houston, we have a problem. And we got to experience that. And what that reminded me of is the experience that we had first getting to Houston, where, as Jane said, we were kind of like all by ourselves, we're kind of looking. And one of the astronauts, I believe it was a Russian astronaut, I'll go back because this was one of those things that came to my brain back here while I was sitting here. But when they were orbiting the Earth, when they first got up and they were orbiting the Earth, and they said when we first saw the world, we saw all of the lines that divided us. We saw, oh, there's the United States, there's Russia, there's this. And then the next time around, they said as we kept going around, we started to notice that the lines in our brains started to fade. And what we saw was just the whole earth. That is, we as created beings of God are on this globe together as one created race. People. And it got me thinking was that when we started, we had 3 different shirts that we could wear. There was the shirt that Jane designed, which was our Oregon shirt, Prince of Life, and Zion shirt, which had the listing of our names behind it, on the back of it, that I said the band is getting back together. We had that. We had our Houston t-shirt, which was for This Changes Everything, and it was great. And then there was the orange, fluorescent orange t-shirt, which reminds me that when we first got there, we had our Oregon t-shirts, and we weren't wearing them when we first got there. Second, third day, we got them on, but other people were, but we were all divided. Like when that astronaut orbited the Earth. Then there was the day where we did our service project. And on that day, it was a requirement that everybody wear their orange shirts. And the joke with the leaders was, if you get lost, just look for an orange shirt. Because everyone had an orange shirt. All of a sudden, all of those dividing lines were gone because we were acting in service for our God, for the city of Houston. It was amazing to see the sea of orange as those dividing lines were erased. Now, when we got back to the airport, we were coming back, and as it was mentioned, when we first, it was even in our group, when we started, and we were talking a little bit, but then when we got to fly back, I loved the fact that we were close enough that as we were getting ready, there was a little bickering going on. Not a lot. It was morally from me, as I was trying to think about how to get us checking in. I'm like, can you guys be quiet? So I got to a point where I was comfortable enough to say that. But the power of the Spirit, as the Spirit moves through and with us, through the stories that we heard, through Ruby's experience, and it was truly amazing. It changes everything. And I did not pay Peter to say that story about people recognizing it. And that was a very awkward and humbling and wonderful experience. But it's true about how God moves us and to let you know that your stories, when you tell your stories, it does change everything as it ripples around. So thank you all, and God bless. The kids. I say kid, but it's like, I tell you what, we sometimes forget the maturity level that they bring to the table, what they've already seen, what they've already experienced, about how life moves so much faster. And so I say kids, but and then I say young adults, and I'm like, fellow children of God as they walk with us. God is up to something, and as Bishop Eaton reminded the kids, they are not the church of the future. They are the church now. And that is a wonderful thing for all of us to remember.